The stars above planet Elidra were shining brighter than usual. But that night, something else was falling from the sky. Something that did not belong. Loud thunder cracked open the calm evening. Flashes of blue fire tore through the clouds. The alien villagers looked up in fear. They had never seen anything like this. Elari, a young alien girl with pale violet skin and glowing eyes, was feeding the animals behind her mother's hut when she heard the sky scream. She dropped the feed basket and ran out. The sky was bleeding. Fire, giant black ships were descending. And then came the sound, the deep roar of engines she couldn't understand. And behind it, a silence that made her blood run cold. The humans had arrived, not just traders or explorers like before. These ones came in armor. These ones had weapons. They came to take, to burn, to rule. The alien elders called them priests. Not because they prayed, but because they wore robes like ancient spiritual leaders. But these robes were armored with metal and dark symbols. These priests didn't speak much. They only pointed, and when they did, things exploded. Elari hid behind the ruins of the old shrine, her breath shaking. She had just seen her uncle vaporized by a human priest's black staff. The ground around him had turned to glass. Her world, once full of stories and stardust, was now a nightmare. No one understood why the humans were attacking. They had been peaceful for decades. Some aliens believed this was a punishment. Others thought it was a mistake. But Elari saw something different that day. She saw a face. Not just any human face. It belonged to one of the priests. And he looked sad. While other human priests marched with cold faces, this one had eyes that looked tired, haunted. He didn't kill. He only walked behind the others. His name, she would learn later, was Father Elliot. But that day, all she knew was fear. The first few days were chaos. Entire villages burned. Forests turned to ash. The Elidrans, peaceful and quiet, didn't know how to fight back. They had no weapons, no armies. They believed in harmony with the stars. But the stars had sent fire instead. On the 5th night, the priests came to Elari's village. Her mother tried to hide her, but it was too late. Their home was surrounded. Torches lit the alien sky. The priests moved like shadows, silent and deadly. Elari held her breath behind a stone wall, listening as her mother screamed and then fell silent. When the flames reached the shrine, Elari expected death, but instead she heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, she turned and saw him, the human priest with the sad eyes. He didn't lift his weapon. He looked at her, really looked, and something passed between them. Not words, not peace, but confusion, pain, recognition. You are different, he said softly. His voice didn't match the others. It didn't echo hate. It echoed something else, regret. Elari wanted to scream, to attack him, to curse him for what the humans had done. But she couldn't move. His presence froze her. Not with fear, but with questions. Why was he here? Why did he look like he was about to cry? And why did he not kill her? Then, a noise broke the moment. Another priest shouted from across the village. The sad-eyed man turned, gave her one last look, and vanished into the smoke. Elari collapsed behind the shrine. Everything was lost. Her people, her family, her home, but her heart held on to one strange fact. One priest had spared her life. She didn't know why. She didn't know who he really was. But she would find out, and when she did, it would change the future of both their worlds. For 3 nights, Elari wandered through the ruined forest. The sky no longer glowed with peace. Smoke curled from the horizon. Small fires still burned in the distance. There were no more birds singing, no insects humming. Only silence and the soft sound of her bare feet on the blackened soil. She held her mother's pendant close to her chest. It was the only thing left. Sometimes it pulsed with a faint warmth, as if it still carried her mother's voice. Alari whispered to it at night, "Tell me what to do, where to go, On the fourth day, she reached the outer hills. Before the war, these hills were sacred. Now they were full of shadows. Strange machines floated above the ground, watching, scanning, searching for survivors. Alari stayed low, hiding under roots, crawling through mud. Her small body was bruised and tired, but her heart refused to give up. And then she saw him again, the sad-eyed priest. He stood alone on the edge of the broken hill, looking up at the stars like he had lost something. His black robe was torn. At the edge, his boots covered in ash. The other priests weren't with him. He was alone. Lr single quotes as heart pounded. This was her chance. She crept forward, quiet as the wind, gripping a sharp stone in her hand. If he turned, if he raised his weapon, she would fight. Even if she lost, she would not go without a sound. But he didn't turn. Instead, he spoke without looking. "You followed me." Alari froze. How did he know? "Why didn't you kill me?" she asked, her voice hoarse. He turned slowly. His eyes were darker than before, full of storms. "Because I've already killed too many," he said. His voice cracked at the end. He sat down on a broken stone and removed his gloves. His hands were rough, burnt, shaking. Lri stepped closer, but still kept her distance. "You're one of them. Why are you here alone?" The priest Father Elliot looked at her, this time with something strange in his eyes. "I was told we were bringing order," he whispered, "but all I see is pain." Alari sat too, but far across from him. "Your people destroyed everything. You came with fire, not peace." He nodded. "I know. I didn't believe it at first. I thought we were helping. But the more we burned, the more I began to question." He reached into his robe and pulled out a small object. A circular token, carved with alien symbols. Not human. It looked like something from Alari's own village. "This was from a child," he said. "A boy I found hiding. Before the others burned his house, he gave this to me. He thought I was a protector." Tears welled in his eyes. "But I wasn't." Ilari's grip on the stone loosened. This man, this priest, was broken. Not just outside, but deep inside. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. He looked at her, quiet for a long moment. "Because you're the only one who looked at me and didn't scream." A breeze passed between them. For a few seconds, the war felt distant. They were just two souls, one human, one alien sitting in the ruins of a forgotten peace. Then, a sound shattered the stillness, a human patrol, loud boots, sharp voices, metal clanging. Father Elliot stood fast. He looked at her and whispered, "Run, now." "What about you?" she asked. "If they see you, they'll kill you." He stepped between her and the direction of the voices, but Alari began to protest. "Go." He snapped, louder now. His voice wasn't cold. It was desperate. Alari backed away into the trees, heart racing. She turned once, just once, and saw him raise his hands as two soldiers appeared behind the hill. They questioned him, pushed him, but he said nothing. He was protecting her, a human priest. Was protecting an alien girl. Alari ran until her legs shook. The forest closed around her like a thick curtain. She didn't stop until she reached the edge of an ancient stone ring, a forgotten circle from before the humans came. The air was colder here, heavier, even. The light looked different, like the trees were holding their breath. She collapsed near a root, gasping. Her chest hurt, her fingers trembled. The pendant around her neck was glowing again, but now it was flashing, like it was alive, like it was calling. "What are you trying to show me?" she whispered. She held it close. The warm light from inside flickered and shifted, forming strange symbols, ones she didn't recognize. They spun slowly in the air above the pendant. Not just lights. Not just a trick. This was something else. A message. Alari reached into the ground and dug under the roots, guided by the light. Her fingers touched something cold. She pulled hard, and there it was. A small crystal cylinder, hidden deep in the earth. Inside the cylinder was a scroll. Old, wrapped in gold wire and covered in ancient language. Alien, yes, but not from her people. It was older than even the elders' stories. As she touched it, the pendant stopped flashing. The message had been delivered. But she wasn't alone. A sound behind her, a sharp breath. She spun, gripping the crystal. Tube like a weapon. A boy stood there, young, small, but human. His clothes were torn. He had no weapons, and he looked afraid. Don't scream, he said quickly, raising his hands. Alari didn't lower her guard. Why are you following me? She asked. I wasn't, he said, stepping back. I'm hiding too. From who? From them, the other priests. He looked just like one of them, but younger. No armor, no black staff, no darkness in his eyes. What's your name? She asked. He hesitated, then said, Kai. She watched him closely. You're one of them, he nodded. I was born on the ship. My parents are scientists. They thought we were bringing knowledge. But it was war. He pointed at the scroll in her hands. That's what they're hunting. The priests. The high ones. They want the scroll. Alari's grip tightened. Why? Kai looked around nervously. They think it's a weapon. Something that can control minds or unlock machines or stop the war. Alari blinked. Stop the war? Kai nodded again. Some say it's a key. Others say it's a curse. But if they find it, they will destroy it or worse, use it. Alari looked down at the glowing cylinder. Her hands were shaking again. I don't want war, she said quietly. Kai sat beside her. Me neither. For a moment, there was silence between them. Just the wind whispering through the trees. I met one of your priests, Alari said softly. He didn't kill me. He protected me. Kai frowned. Was he tall, brown eyes? Always quiet? She nodded. Kai's voice lowered. That's Father Elliot. You know him? Kai nodded. He used to teach me. He wasn't like the others. He always asked questions. Always wanted to know why. They didn't like that. Where is he now? She asked. Kai looked away. He's in danger. They're watching him. They think he's single quotes S. broken. Alari stood. Then we have to find him. Kai looked up. Why? Because he's the only one who might help us use this scroll. Not to destroy, but to save. Suddenly, a blast shook the ground. They both ducked. A black drone flew overhead, circling, searching. Kai whispered. They found us. Alari grabbed his hand. Run. They ran through the forest, dodging trees and ducking under branches. More drones arrived. Beams of light scanned the ground. And from behind them, the sound of boots. The priests were coming. But Alari wasn't afraid anymore. She had the scroll. She had a human boy who didn't believe in the war. And somewhere out there was the priest with sad eyes. Together they had a chance. The forest was no longer safe. Alari and Kai ran until their lungs hurt. Trees blurred past them as black drones circled above. Strange red lights flickered between the branches. Machines were speaking to each other in cold voices, searching for one thing: the scroll. They reached a narrow path that led into the caves. The air inside was damp and cold. Echoes bounced around them like whispers from the past. Alari clutched the glowing cylinder close to her chest. She didn't know how it worked. She didn't know why the pendant had led her to it. But something deep inside her said it mattered. Kai was breathing hard. These caves, they were used long ago, before the war. By who? Alari asked. My father told me the first contact between humans and your people happened here. This was a place of peace talks, Ilari looked around. The walls were covered in carvings, some in her people's language, others in symbols she had never seen. But they didn't have time to stop. Sound echoed behind them, not a machine. Not a drone. But footsteps. Slow, familiar. Kai's eyes widened. Someone's coming. Ilari turned, heart racing, and from the shadows he appeared. Father Elliot. His robes were dirtied, his face tired, but his presence filled the cave with silence. Not fear, just silence. He looked at Ilari, then at Kai. "You found it," he said softly. Kai stepped forward. "Father, they're hunting us." Father Elliot nodded. "I know. What do they want with this scroll?" Ilari asked, holding up the glowing cylinder. He walked slowly toward her. "Because they're afraid," he said. "Not of the scroll, but of what it means." "What does it mean?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at the carvings on the cave wall, brushing away dust with his hand. Underneath was a symbol: two hands, one human, one alien, holding a bright star. "Long ago," Father Elliot began, "there was a priest before me. A human who believed that your people and mine shared something powerful. A connection. He called it the soul link. He believed there was a way to bring peace, not through power, but through understanding." Kai frowned, but the council banned his teachings. Father Elliot nodded. They feared what they couldn't control. They erased the records, called him a traitor, but before he disappeared, he left this scroll. Ilari looked down at the relic in her hands. "And now?" "Now they want to destroy it. They say it's dangerous. They say it makes soldiers soft. It makes them feel." Kai's voice shook. "But it's true, isn't it?" Father Elliot turned to him. "Yes, what does it do?" Ilari asked. Father Elliot reached out and gently placed his hand over the pendant hanging around her neck. As he touched it, the pendant pulsed. And then the scroll began to glow, too, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. "This is not a weapon," he whispered. "It's a memory." Ilari blinked. "What?" "The scroll holds the shared memories of the first soul link. It's a message between worlds. If we unlock it, everyone will see the truth." "Then why are we hiding?" Kai asked. "Why don't we show it to everyone?" Father Elliot sighed. "Because truth is dangerous when power is built on lies." He looked at Ilari. "You're the key. Your pendant was passed down for this reason, and now you've awakened it." Suddenly, the ground trembled. A beam of red light burst into the coast cave. The drones had found them. "Run," Father Elliot said. "No," Ilari replied. "Not this time." She stepped into the center of the cave and held up the pendant and the scroll. The lights in the cave flickered. The carvings on the walls began to glow. Wind rushed through the space. The scroll floated between her hands, spinning. Kai watched in awe. Father Elliot smiled, just barely. But outside the cave, the machines prepared to attack. The cave shook like thunder was trapped inside it. Ilari stood at the center, eyes wide, as the scroll hovered above her palms. The air was filled with golden light. The carvings on the cave walls glowed brighter than fire. Each one lit up in sequence, one by one, like stars waking from sleep. Kai stepped back, shielding his face. "What's happening?" Father Elliot didn't move. He stood tall, his eyes fixed on the scroll. "It's opening." The scroll spun faster, and the voice returned, calm, deep, filled with ancient power. "This is the memory of unity. This is the truth buried in war." Suddenly, images filled the cave, holograms made of light and dust. They floated in the air, glowing in golden mist. Ellery gasped. They were seeing history. Not books, not words, but moments. A human and an alien elder shaking hands under a twin-star sky. Children, half human, half alien, playing in peace. Priests, not in armor, but in white robes, planting trees instead of carrying weapons. And then, the betrayal. Ships falling from the sky. Flames devouring forests. the first priest, the one Father Elliot spoke of, standing in front of a burning shrine, shouting, "We are one. Do not forget." And then silence. The memory ended. The scroll gently fell into Ilari's hands. The pendant around her neck pulsed once, then dimmed. "They lied to all of us," Kai whispered. "Our leaders, they erased everything." "Father." Elliot looked toward the cave entrance, where red lights now flickered stronger than before. "That's why they fear this scroll. Not because it's dangerous, but because it tells the truth." Outside, the priests were arriving. Soldiers, in dark robes, drones humming like angry bees. They carried weapons meant to destroy cities. "We need to escape," Kai said. But Father Elliot shook his head. "If we run, this truth dies again." He turned to Ilari. "We show it to them. Now here." Ilari's voice trembled. "They won't. Listen." He smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "They will if they see a priest standing with you." He stepped forward, removed his outer robe, and threw it on the ground. Underneath, he wore simple clothes, no weapons. Number. Metal. Just a small crest over his heart, the ancient symbol of peace from the first priest. Kai's eyes filled with tears. "Father, they'll kill you." "Maybe," he said softly. "But not before they see the truth." Ilari stood beside him. Kai hesitated, then joined them. Three figures, one scroll, one light. The enemy entered the cave. A dozen armored priests stepped in, weapons raised. Drones hovered behind them. The high priest walked in last. His voice echoed, cold and sharp, "Traitor." Father Elliot didn't flinch. "Witness this." He pointed at the glowing carvings. The scroll still shimmered in Ilari's hands. The pendant around her neck began glowing again, brighter this time. The high priest raised his hand. "Destroy it." But the soldiers didn't move. They were staring at the images still floating in the air. The memories. The truth, some of them, just. A few lowered their weapons. One whispered, I remember those symbols from when I was a child." Another said, "My grandmother told me stories about peace." The high priest's voice shook. "They are lies." Father Elliot raised his voice. "Then why are you afraid of them?" The cave trembled again. Not from machines, but from something older. A deep energy was rising. And then cracked. A beam of golden light burst from the scroll and hit the ceiling. Dust fell. Drones powered down. Some soldiers dropped to their knees, covering their faces. The truth was too bright to deny. The cave stood still. The blade hovered in the air, but the hand that held it was frozen. The young priest, just a soldier moments ago, stood between Ilari and death. His body trembled, but his eyes were clear. "No more lies," he repeated. High priest growled, his face twisted in rage. "You dare betray the order?" The young priest didn't move. "I was loyal to truth, not to your fear." Ilari stood behind him, her hand still glowing with the scroll. The memories of peace, the light of unity, were still dancing in the air. More priests stepped forward. Some dropped their weapons. Some wept. Some simply stood, silent and stunned. Kai whispered, "They're remembering." Father Elliot nodded slowly. "Truth is louder than war. It always was." The high priest looked around and saw the silence growing. He raised his hand again, this time to call for a final strike, but no one followed. His command hung in the air like smoke and vanished. His own soldiers stepped back. He turned to Father Elliot, his voice now shaking. "You've destroyed everything." Father Elliot stepped forward. "No, we've remembered everything." The high priest's weapon dropped from his hand and clattered to the cave floor. In that single moment, centuries of fear cracked. Ilari stepped forward, past the circle of priests, and held up the scroll. It glowed with a steady golden light, no longer flashing. It was no longer a warning. It was a beginning. "We can choose," she said loudly. We don't have to follow shadows anymore. Kai stepped beside her. We can build something new. Not just with humans, not just with aliens, but with all of us together. A voice echoed through the cave, a priest's voice from the crowd. How do we start? Ilari looked at Father Elliot. He smiled, and he said the words that would later be carved into the new stones of unity across both worlds. We begin with truth. Then we listen. Days passed. The cave became a place of gathering. Soldiers returned their weapons. Priests removed their armor. Elders came from burned villages to hear the truth. The scroll was kept in the center of the cave, not hidden but open for all to see. The memories inside were shared, played in light, told in stories, and written in every language. The war machines powered down. The sky, once filled with fire, now carried birds again. And laughter returned to places where only screams had echoed. High Priest was taken away, not punished with death, but with silence. He was told to watch, to witness what his fear could not stop. Kai returned to the stars with his parents, this time, not as a refugee, but as a messenger of peace. Elari stayed. She walked from village to village, holding the pendant that once glowed with sorrow, now shining with hope. Children gathered around her. Elders bowed in respect. And beside her, always, was Father Elliot. No longer a priest in war robes, but a teacher, a listener. A bridge. Years later, the shrine at the center of Elidra was rebuilt, not with walls but with light. People from every world gathered there once a year to speak stories of the past. On the wall behind the shrine, a carving stood tall, a girl holding a scroll, a boy holding a star, a priest standing between them, smiling with gentle eyes. Underneath, in simple words, truth remembered is peace reborn. Final lines, emotional close. As the sun set across the quiet hills of Elidra, Ilari stood alone, watching the golden light spill across the stones. She held the pendant close and whispered, "We were never meant to destroy. We were always meant to understand." And for the first time since the sky burned, she smiled,